Good morning. The world of sport and beyond is getting ready to say goodbye to Shane Warne. The state memorial for the Australian cricket legend will take place in a few hours' time at the MCG in Melbourne after Warne died of a suspected heart attack earlier this month at the age of 52.
Sarah joins us for the sport. Lots of football happening last night, but we're going to focus, aren't we, on a memorial for Shane Warne?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody will be waking up, won't they, knowing that this is going on in Melbourne. We're going to be there very shortly. Before we do that, I'll update you on the football first, and then we will be live in Melbourne. So I think actually we can go straight to Melbourne because the crowds are gathering there, many dressed in their cricket gear as Australia prepares to bid a public farewell to one of its most successful and colourful sporting stars, Shane Warne. A state memorial service will start in about an hour's time, and it is aimed at being a celebration of one of the best cricketers ever to have played. So we can speak now to Isa Guha, the former England player who worked alongside Shane so many times in the commentary booth. Isa is in Melbourne for us this morning. Thank you for joining us on Breakfast. Isa, I know at the time when the news came out that Shane had tragically passed away a few weeks ago, there was so much shock. I wonder for you in the weeks since if you've realised what Shane meant to you.
Sarah, yes, on reflection, it's been a strange few weeks, to be honest. A lot of shock when we first learned of the news, and then we did our own tribute at Fox that day, so we were already thinking about him in the past tense, which just seemed very surreal. And the last couple of weeks have been an opportunity to really kind of reflect on that unique relationship and the relationship that he had with so many colleagues at various different places in cricket. He just had such an impact on so many people, but for me personally, not just as a youngster growing up in the game and watching him on television and wanting to follow in his footsteps in the way he played the game. You know, he was a bit of a gambler. He would be happy to lose to try and win a game of cricket, and that's how I tried to do things when I went out onto the field, but also just the magic he possessed on the field, off the field, in the commentary box. There'd be moments I'd sit alongside him and there'd be a spark. He'd look at a game situation and he'd describe it perfectly to the wider audience, and he had a knack of being able to do that as a broadcaster as well. We forget that. But also just the relationship that I had with him, I just feel very honoured and privileged that I could eventually call him a friend, and that he supported me through my journey. And I'd say he probably was the most significant person in my career in terms of believing in myself as a commentator.
Yeah, Isa, that was one of the things that I know I read that you were saying, and I thought it was such a nice view into Shane Warne. We hear so much about his genius, on a cricket pitch, the personality of it, but that support that he gave to you seemed to be really important.
He was just an enigma, really. You talked about that genius that he possessed on the field, but he had this magnetic personality that everyone wanted to be close to him, and I just feel so grateful that he offered me that support. I guess walking into a male-dominated commentary box with plenty of legends around, I knew that as soon as I had his respect, I had everyone else's, and he really just had that about him, the ability to support others and kind of make the environment a relaxed one. He was quite boisterous, he was jovial. He'd come in the morning in a bit of a whirlwind, and he'd be telling us about things that he got up to the night before, but also focusing in on the game situation and what he wanted to happen in the day's play. And they were my favourite moments, actually, just talking cricket with him off commentary. And he'd ask me questions about the game, I'd be able to ask him as well, and it was a pretty relaxed affair. I'll miss that so much. He's going to leave a massive hole, certainly in the commentary box, but I know that he's impacted so many people around the world, and I just hope that he gets a good farewell today. I'm sure he's going to miss this celebration himself, because it really is set up to be a fantastic one here at his home at the G.
Yeah, do you feel it's a fitting way to end things, Isa?
Absolutely. This was his backyard. He spoke about Victoria and Melbourne so positively. I mean, he'd often send us messages and say, "Oh, why are you up in Sydney? Because it rains there all the time." or in England when we're in Manchester, he'd always talk about the Melbourne weather, and fittingly, it's been quite a nice day. The sun's been out, slightly cooler conditions, but should be a fabulous affair here at the G. I guess it was his playground. You know, he had so many memorable moments here on the field, off the field, and just hope we're able to celebrate what an incredible life he had.
Isa Guha, thank you so much for joining us on Breakfast. Really interesting to hear all the thoughts and the emotions, and you know, just somebody who just meant so many things, different things to people, whether it was on the pitch, his personality off it.
And striking that she said he'd be sorry to miss the party.
Yeah.
Really
It's really interesting how people are smiling there. You know, it's obviously a sad day, but you know, clearly it's reflecting the man.
And a hero, I think, to people not just in Australia. You know, England cricket fans love Shane Warne.
Shane Warne was criticising the weather in Sydney. Goodness knows what he'd think of the weather here, hey, Matt?
Who knows? I tell you something, a bit of a shock today if he was up in parts of northwest England, Wales and Northern Ireland.